All right, so we all know that Olympic weightlifting is one of the tools that we use as strength and conditioning coaches to train our athletes. I think we also know that it's an extremely complex tool that we use, utilizing the snatch, the clean and jerk, and variations of that when we're applying it to especially collegiate athletes. It takes some time. We know the value that can come from this bar work, but we know that we have to really take some time to teach it and understand it and have the athletes understand it prior to them really, being able to get a true training effect out of it. If the technique is not there, then we're not really, again, doing what we think we're doing, because we're losing some of that training effect because of the technique leaks that we're going to have due to maybe the athlete not understanding the technique or their skill level with the bar. So hopefully today we can go over some things that you can immediately add into the program, easy things, mechanics work with the barbell that you can plug and play either right into your warm-ups or into the lifts themselves. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how we apply, we're going to use the power clean as the example, and how we apply the power clean first, where we pull the bar from and how we assess that. So some athletes aren't going to be able to pull from the floor. In fact, I believe that not a significant amount of your athletes are probably going to be able to pull from the floor. The reason being is simply a lot of mobility issues. And some of that can be improved, and some of that may not improve, and they're going to have to pull from maybe a raised position for maybe the entirety of their career in the weight room. Some of our taller guys, some of our guys who lack mobility. So how do we look at that, and why are we doing that? So we'll use gym as an example. So we have some medium boxes on the ground, and we're going to use these boxes to make a point about pulling from a raised position. But the first thing we're going to look at, and whatever squat assessment that you use is a beneficial thing that you can use to understand, okay, do we have the mobility to pull from the floor? So if we look at Jim going into a squat, body weight squat, so we can see, and come up a little bit, Jim. So a little bit lower. So right there we can see he can maintain a pretty good position in the squat, all right? So torso position is good, feet are flat, he can maintain, he's strong in that position. Core looks pretty good, head position's good, so come on up, Jim. So Jim is somebody who does pull from the floor, so hey, we can roll with that, all right? But not everybody's gonna be in that position or be able to get into that position. So the point is, we need to look at our athletes a little bit more in terms of where they can pull from, and if they are limited in that mobility, and if they are, then it's okay to accept the fact that we can put something on the ground and raise that bar, bring the bar to them. If we think about it this way, if we have an athlete that is 6'7", 6'8", and we have an athlete that is 5'5", we wouldn't tell that 6'8" athlete or that 5'5" athlete to pull from a deficit to match where the 6'7" athlete is pulling from. But we're okay with the 6'7" athlete pulling from the floor the same way the 5'5" athlete is pulling from the floor, okay? So if you kind of use that comparison, we can kind of accept the fact that, hey, we need to raise the bar up for most of these people, okay? So that's first and foremost, understanding where the athlete needs to pull from. And I understand in Olympic weightlifting, we're gonna pull from different positions, and that's how we use the boxes, pulling from a high hang, pulling from the hang or above the knee. But in this case, we're gonna use it to make the lift safer for the athlete, because we already know they're not probably the most skilled in the bar movement, so let's make it a little bit easier for them. We're still going to get the benefit out of the exercise. Okay, so the next thing I want to go over is just a couple drills that we do in our warm-ups prior to getting in our working sets. So every time that we're going to do an Olympic lift, and again, we're using the power clean as an example, we're going to do some sort of mechanics work first before getting into the working sets or even the full warm-up sets. So we're going to do some sort of bar work first, so we can always have some sort of practice and reminder for the athlete before getting into the sets. And it's it doesn't take too much time, it doesn't take too much effort for the athlete, but it's just reminding them of where they need to go, grooving that pattern as we all talk about. So the first thing we'll get into is what language we speak, because the warm-ups stem from this language, and we've heard it before. Some people will talk about it as the high hang, the hang position, or below the knee. We talk about it as position 1, position 2, and position 3, and the athletes know where those positions are. So first, we'll demonstrate where those positions are. So if Jim picks up the bar, standing up nice and tall, And this is kind of, you know, a few steps in, all right? So we're first talking about some things with the athlete in the setup. So we're assuming that they're pretty solid in the hip hinge and all those sorts of things. But once we get into the lifts, position 1 is your high hang position, all right? So position 1, there's a slight knee bend. We have full foot interaction with the ground. Jim's shoulders are over the bar. And go ahead and stand up again. Before getting into that position, we'll touch on the fact that I'm cueing him to relax at the shoulder and have a strong grip on the bar. And again, like we've talked about in previous videos, we want to create tension with the grip and core versus trying to create tension by retracting and depressing the scaps. So we want to have that athlete with full foot interaction on the ground. In other words, like we see sometimes, we don't want that kind of lean back with toes up because they're kind of resting in that bar. We want a good setup in that full foot interaction so we're solid before we get into any sort of hinge or any sort of bend. So position 1 is the high hang. Position 2 is going to be that hang position above the knee. So this is what position 2 looks like. Again, that bar is slightly separated from the knee. The shoulders are over the bar. Eyes are up as we cue kind of on the horizon in front of you, all right? So we're not looking to the ceiling or hyperextending. We're just talking about a fixed point in front of you, all right? We want to look at that fixed point in front of you and keep your eyes there. Reason being, we're not talking about packing the neck or anything, and that's a different story for maybe some deadlifts or some RDLs. But when you have such a violent movement where the bar is flying around and you have to catch it, we kind of have to think about that vestibular system a little bit. And if your eyes are flying around and you're trying to catch a bar, you're probably not going to have success because you don't have that fixed point to negate any sort of movement with the eyes. As we all know, that eye line is a powerful thing in determining, you know, how good that movement is going to be carried out. So that's position 2 is the hang, above the knee. So position 3 is going to be below the knee. Now, I didn't say from the floor, I'm just saying wherever the position is below the knee that athlete can get into safely, that's where position 3 is for that athlete, all right? So again, below the knee. So Jim gets below the knee, and again, shoulders are over the bar, hips are low, full foot interaction with the ground. And go ahead, come up and rest, Jim, come up and rest. Okay, so again, position 3, below the knee, all right? And then from here, we're gonna go into what we do in the warm-up, all right? Or what mechanics, examples of mechanics works that we'll do. So assuming that we're pretty proficient at the pull, we'll talk about a mechanics warm-up that we go through where we're gonna catch the bar, okay? So before we get into a power clean, we're gonna go, an example of a warm-up, we're gonna go first position 1, catch, all right? So hang tight, Jim. So the first thing we'll do, most of the time this will be on a tempo. So if we have a team environment in here, so if you've got a team coming in, we got 30 kids lined up or whatever it is, or we have one group up, say 12 kids are going, you know, during this first part of the warm-up, you know, we'll get in and we'll, on a tempo, calling out position 1. So getting into position 1, everybody's on the same page, everybody can hold this position, and we'll talk about, hey, full foot interaction with the ground, remember, shoulders over the bar. So we have time to correct people around the room. Everybody's holding this position, and again, it's light, it's just the barbell. And then from here, we're gonna catch the bar and we're gonna hold the catch. So go ahead, Jim. Hold the catch. So we'll talk about to athletes, if the knees are forward, we'll talk about getting the hips back into a good catch position. Again, this is a hip dominant catch. Full foot interaction with the ground. If somebody's elbows are down, we have time to say, hey, get the elbows up, eyes in front of you, and then stand up. And all that is on a tempo. The next thing we'll do is get to position 2. Okay, so we'll go position 2 and catch. So Jim holds at position 2. And again, the reason why we're talking about separation from the bar and the knee is, think about if we're pulling it from the floor, we're not going to rest that bar on the top of the knee. Some things, you know, you see that sometimes, I think, with coming down to that hang position, is that sliding, more of a knee dominant position, or that bar is resting on top of the knee. We don't want that. We're preparing for power clean, and that's not going to happen in power clean. We're not going to bring it up, drop it on the knee, and then pull, all right? So we emphasize the fact that that bar should be separated from the knee. The shoulders are, again, in line with the bar. He's resting or relaxing here at the shoulder. He's strong through the core. We're feeling this in the hamstrings, eye line. The eyes are up in front of you. And then go ahead and stand up, Jim. So the reason I had Jim stand up, and another point we make with the athletes, anytime you're tentative, once you go into the hang position and you have to pause and you have a little bit of, you know, hesitation before you pull, immediately reset, all right? unless you're confident and you're ready to go, and you see an athlete sort of pause and they're like not ready, maybe it's too heavy, have them stand up, reset, take a step back. Again, this is a sport we're teaching them, all right? We're not going to see an Olympic weightlifter pause and be hesitant during those lifts. So reset, we go back down to position 2, and catch, and come on up, okay? So some more things about position 2. Once we get there, and that's, again, the full movement, and we'll kind of touch on some more stuff we probably should have touched on first, but when position 2, once we come up, we're going to start teaching that double knee bend, all right? So we all know in our Olympic weightlifting is that once we get to this position with our shoulders over the bar, all right, we're going to need to bring that bar to the high hang position. We don't want to just think of a horizontal displacement at the hips and the hips coming forward. We want to get that bar draw it into the hip so we can make this a vertical displacement or a vertical push as we would cue to then jump using that cue. I know we're not jumping, but using that cue to push and catch, all right? So in teaching that, once we get to position 2, we cue the athletes to go at a tempo during the warm-up, during the mechanics warm-up, a slower tempo to position 1, and then once they get to 1, it's that higher velocity footwork of triple extension, transitioning to your strength stance, and catching, all right? So it's a slower tempo, which we'll demonstrate right here, is position 2. And again, teaching the double knee bend, we're going to have a bit of a transition of knees coming forward slightly, drawing that bar back into the hip, so we get to this upright position with shoulders over the bar, triple extend, get that footwork so we're transitioning out into your strength stance and elbows are up. So go ahead, Jim, again. So we'll get on a tempo, we'll take 3 seconds to get up to position 1. So position 2, and then remember getting that footwork, so get into the strength stance. So position 2, and then 3, 2, 1, and catch. Elbows are up, hips are back, and stand up. Perfect, all right? So again, why are we doing this? Because a lot of our athletes aren't going to understand that we need to have that double knee bend. They don't know what that means. So let's talk to them about, hey, what does this feel like? This is more like your vertical jump. We don't have that bent over horizontal displacement position. We don't want that on this lift. We want them to draw the hips in so they can have that firm grasp so they can push into the ground powerfully with a lot of force and then catch the bar, all right? So it's extremely important to teach that double knee bend, but in a way that's going to be understanding to the athlete. All right, so the last position we're going to get into in this particular warm-up or bar mechanics warm-up is position 3, all right? So again, position 3 is going to be different for everybody, and we stress that, all right? We don't need to bring the barbell all the way down to the floor, which sometimes we get caught up in. Have the athletes, educate the athletes on where they're going to be pulling from, and that's going to be their position 3. Maybe it's at that time, and again, it can improve down the line, but maybe that's, again, the position 3 for the athlete for the whole time they're going to be training here. So if Jim picks up the bar, we're standing up again nice and tall. Again, during the warm-up, we have the group, okay, and we're cueing the whole group to get into that position and hold, all right, until we see that everybody is in that good position. Again, we can go around and make corrections. That's the benefit, I think, of the bar mechanics warm-up being on the tempo, and then we kind of let them loose during the warm-up set. So if we get to position 3, Jim's position 3 and hips a little bit lower, bring that bar up a little bit and hips lower, shoulders over the bar. Okay, so make your corrections, whole foot on the ground, all right? And then from here, again, it's a tempo. So go ahead, show the whole movement with that tempo, and we'll explain as we go along. So knees get out of the way, we get to position 1, and we pull and catch, all right? So go ahead and relax and get a bit of a rest. So what we're trying to do with position 3 and that slow tempo to get to 1 and then pulling and catching is understanding what the bar path is all about. And you continue to educate the athlete on the bar path and understand that it's not just, hey, bar on ground, lift up, get on shoulders, all right? There's a lot of technique involved because we're going to, again, the training effect is going to be maximized if they learn the proper biomechanics and the technique of the lift. So again, if we get to position 3 and go through it a little step by step, that slow tempo for the bar mechanics warm-up, position 3, now slowly come up to position 2. We're getting the knees out of the way, all right? We're sort of shifting back, knees come out of the way, shoulders are still over the bar, so get above the knee to position 2. Once we're above the knee, again, now we think about brushing the thigh, and we're thinking about that double knee bend, bringing the bar back into the hip, and then go ahead and relax. and then we're going to pull and catch, all right? So again, get to position 3 again. Full foot interaction with the ground, shoulders relaxed, core is good. Slowly up to position 2, and we're going to cue, get the knees out of the way, but keep the bar close. There's bar separation at the knee. Once we get to 2, then slowly moving back to 1, brushing the thigh, bringing the bar into the hip, and then jump and catch. Or we'll cue jump. Now I know some of the purists, I know we're not jumping, all right? We're going to cue that for some people so they know that what that triple extension feels like, and they know that they have to actually make a transition, all right? A lot of times when we see just this movement with the feet and catching, we're going to get into some trouble. I think we see a lot, you know, making the point of really stressing the footwork, and we actually do have to move the feet from your power stance into your strength stance when you catch the bar. If we're only using this sort of movement to then pull and catch, most of the time what are we going to see? Probably a knee dominant catch, all right? And we're not going to get or maximize the full potential of their force and rate of force or velocity production, because yes, we might be extending, but we're leaving some on the table. So we're leaving a little bit on the table by only getting to here instead of maximizing that and actually transitioning into the strength stance to catch the bar, all right? So we cue a lot and make sure that a lot of people come in, if they do Olympic weightlifting, you know, we'll see that a lot, and we'll stress the fact whether using maybe a drill to make that foot transition happen or really cueing that and emphasizing that, so as the weights get heavier, it's something that they're really going to need to do. And we don't want to see them just kind of being satisfied with kind of this slow, hey, get up on my toes and then just come back down. And usually we're going to see that knee dominant, elbows down catch versus making your transition, hips back and the elbows up, okay? So again, those are some of the things that we're involved in a bar mechanics warm-up, examples of a bar mechanics warm-up. Not a teaching tool, because we've already taught a lot of things, and that's involved in the teaching as well. But every time they're going to get into a power clean in this case, we're going to use that warm-up. We're going to go through that position 1, catch, position 2, catch, position 3, catch, just so they remember, okay, what does that bar path feel like? You know, what do I need to do just so they're not ripping the bar off the ground and then catching it, all right? And every time they come in, they're going to go through this type of warm-up or a variety or variation of it prior to getting into their working sets. So hopefully that helps.